Welcome to the Indie Women Podcast, where we introduce you to the fearless women taking their filmmaking careers into their own hands, showing you how indie films get made. And here's your host, Heather Turman.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Indie Women Podcast, a show dedicated to the women in the indie film world who have found success bringing their projects to life on their own terms. I'm your host, Heather Turman, and I am especially excited to be bringing you guys this week's episode. It's a treat. It's special. It's I sat down. I thought it would be fun to have a festival director on, right? Because film festivals are such an integral part of the indie film experience, I feel like. People's lives change as a result of the festival circuit, especially in the realm of indie film. So I got to sit down with the director of the Pasadena International Film Festival, Jessica Hardin. And I first met Jessica when my film, Stuck, was a selection at the 2018 Pasadena International Film Festival. And I had such a good time at that festival, so I thought she would be a really great person to have on, to sort of, have an informative and educational chat for you guys. Jessica, she's such a rad lady. She's a lifetime lover of film who, through her festival, brings together filmmakers, artists, businesses, and the public for 9 days filled with entertainment and education. Her festival enhances and rewards the lives of filmmakers and the community by creating lasting relationships, profound experiences, and meaningful connections that serve as catalysts for both the filmmakers' success as well as the community's artistic and cultural enrichment. A festival in any town really helps the community, and the businesses there. And I think her festival is a testament to that. And plus, she drops tons of insight, into the selection process and sort of what kinds of films they don't really see very often, what kinds of submissions they're seeking, what kinds of, just the voids to fill, which I felt like was really informative. And then she also talked about some very specific success stories that came about as a direct result of her festival. So that I really loved. And of course, she talks about being a woman who runs a festival and how everyone thinks, she's just someone who works there. But you guys are in for a treat. I really hope you enjoy this. And my dog was loudly, shaking and scratching. I'm sure you heard that, but too bad. I introduced Jessica, so we're just going to go from here. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Jessica Hardin.
Well, hello, welcome to the Indie Women Podcast. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's, I feel like in the world of indie film, festivals are such a huge part of it. They're such not only just for meeting other people, but getting your work seen. It still seems like the best way to get an indie film to promote it is regional film fest, Yeah. So it was such a pleasure to reach out to you and have you say yes. And for the listeners who don't know, if they're just listening to the audio, they can't see the lovely Pasadena International Film Festival laurel behind you. But Jessica Hardin is the festival director of that festival. So I would love to just sort of how did you get started in the business and what led you to becoming a festival director?
Well, I was always interested in film just since I was a little girl, which is probably pretty standard with everybody. It's just, I grew up in Illinois and South Carolina, and I went to a governor's school for the arts, and I studied acting there and college. And then I was an actress in New York City. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and I met my husband at the Knightsbridge Theater in Silver Lake.
Oh, cool.
And he was in a film that toured the festival circuit. And it was really fun. It was a really wonderful way to travel for a year and to he went to Spain, and we went to the Beverly Hills Film Festival. And that sort of opened my eyes to it. And it seemed like, because LA it can be a tough town, and the film industry is difficult to break into. And then we went to the Los Angeles Film Festival. And I was like, this is so fantastic, because it's a way, it's a very targeted way. And it's not exclusive, but it's exclusive enough so you aren't just randomly walking into some bar somewhere. You know that these are people who have the same passions as you and the same interests. And but it was so difficult to, other than to see a movie, because we were asking people like, where can we go and just like have a drink and a great conversation, and they were like, well, other than this $400 pass, like there's really nothing you can do. And so I was like, okay, well, that's kind of messed up. And so my husband, I was living in Silver Lake at the time. My husband was living in Pasadena, and he was like, just come check it out. Just come check it out. And I did. And it was a really great town for arts and culture. And they didn't have a film festival. So I just started setting up some meetings, and then one thing led to another. And I was like, I guess I'm having a film festival now.
But, was 2014 was the first year?
Yes. And all of the planning started in actually like 2011, 2012.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've heard that adage, like good, fast, and cheap, pick two. So we had no money. So I was like, we're just going to take a long time to do this. Because I knew I really wanted to do it right, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because the film festival world is so male oriented, but what's necessary in film festivals hugely is development, which is fancy word for fundraising, and event planning, which are such like female driven things, you know? So it's kind of, I mean, my husband helps out a lot. He's been a huge help, but even things like just planning our wedding was huge because it makes a difference, you know?
Yes.
It's like, and guys, they might not think they like it, but once they come to a nice party, they're like, oh, okay. This is nice. I like this, you know? And then there's also the programming aspect of it, of course. But so that's basically our story. And it's been fantastic. And I just want to say, you're hugely talented. I loved your film stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Feature films are really hard. Comedy is really hard. So give yourself like pats on the back.
Totally. Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a feat. And they even say there's some crazy stat that like 85, or it might even be higher. Maybe it was even like 92 or something % of like filmmakers, indie filmmakers don't make a second film after their first because it.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's like some crazy number.
I know that. I believe it though.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Especially like what's interesting doing this because short films don't really have any audience. So even like my parents, when we would show them films, they're like, wow. And so most of what we get are short films, which makes sense because it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
You know, but that's interesting. It might be like a bucket list kind of thing, like go to Europe, make a movie, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I think like ultimately it's the thing of like, you know, you can have such attachment to outcome that like so many filmmakers probably think like, oh, this is going to be Napoleon Dynamite. And then it's not, you know what I mean? And so the crush is like too much to ever, because it takes so much energy to make a feature film, so much energy, you know? So it's kind of, it's sad to think that I think that the heartbreak to the outcome is probably what prevents people from doing it again. But
yeah, or maybe, you know, like what was a huge, like Blair Witch. Like I remember I acted in this indie film and the director was like, oh, and what happened with Blair Witch? I mean, and I was like, that's really rare though.
Yeah, like 1 in a million. It's a lottery ticket for sure.
But I get it. But it's, so I mean, that's kind of why we did this too, is it's like, I wanted to give people something, you know, like you can't guarantee that you'll become rich and famous, but I wanted to guarantee like a stellar screening and like a fabulous party and at least produce an event that's like a lot of fun and that hopefully can really gather some fantastic people and have some great networking happen, some great collaborative energy, you know?
Totally. Because I mean, it really is. I mean, when our film was on the festival circuit, there are filmmakers that I watched their films at the festival that I still am like, I want to make sure I keep up with what that person's doing. Or like, you know, where we set up coffee and like, you know, because like it really does, like what catches your eye at a festival might be like, that's someone I want to collaborate with, you know? And I feel like, you know, Pasadena was such a great, I lived in Pasadena for many years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I worked at La Grande Orange. I was like the bartender for 5 years.
Nice. I love it there.
Yeah, great place. And so the community in Pasadena is like no other community in Los Angeles, I feel, because it's really its own bubble. Like it doesn't feel like a bunch of Hollywood types. Like it feels like a town, but it's also creative people, you know?
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like it's next to it's different than Hollywood, but it's next to Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're thinking too. Yeah. Because there's so many Hollywood film festivals.
And so many of them are so poorly run and seem to just be like money.
That's what
scams,
I hear.
You know? Yeah.
And it's so crazy too, because there's a festival that shall remain nameless, but because it's got Hollywood in the title, people submit to it, and it's kind of scammy. And
I totally think we went to that one.
Okay. I don't want to say because it's like I don't want to, because I love Holly Shorts. I love Daniel Soul. What's interesting too is we're sort of like Santa Claus, and it's a Miracle on 34th Street, where we're starting to like make some connections with some good festival directors and try to collaborate, because that whole competitive energy, it's just, life is short, man. I just want to have a good time while I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
So like, I'm going to be the best film festival in the world or in Los Angeles. Like, nope. Like, we just want to have that collaborative energy. And
share the resources, you know, because like ultimately, like, right, like a rising tide lifts many ships. Yeah, you know. I think that's great. And like, since starting in 2014 and now, you know, it's 20, I'm sure.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. Like how has it evolved? Do you find the quality of film submissions are getting, like, is it getting better and better quality each year?
No, you know, what's really interesting is we first started, we were really strict with like no fee waivers. Like our creative director's brother paid the fee because at the time I had a friend who was an agent for rock stars, and he had this very strict like no comp rule. So we knew we wouldn't get tons of submissions. We were really nervous. We got like 300.
Oh, wow.
And about 100 were really good. And every year we get 100, 200 more submissions. The quality stays the same.
There's only like 100 good still. Even when you get like, okay, interesting.
1,000. Yeah. So it's like, it's really interesting. I mean, not quite 100. I think it was like 100 and 150.
Sure.
But it's right around there. It's really interesting because I thought, but it makes sense because making a movie is so hard, and then making a good movie is even harder. So it makes sense to me that like, we keep getting more and more submissions, but the quality is still there. And movies are, and it's, I probably should toot independent films horn more, but I'm leery because I feel like no one believes you because you're tooting your own horn. But independent film is so interesting. I love watching our submissions because it's like nothing you see on television.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so rare, it's so special, and it's there's a certain amount of intimacy to it, and a certain amount of, I guess intimacy is the best word. Like there's just like a uniqueness to independent film. Yeah,
you know that it hasn't been, you know, there haven't been like focus groups, like, you know, that watch it and then weigh in and then they change the ending, or you know what I mean? I mean, it's
exactly. That
totally
stuff happens so much. Like I had friends who wrote the Nanny Diaries. I don't remember, in like 2002, and they went through all of that, and they were just like, what are they doing? What are they doing to her? You know?
Yeah.
And like, we'll just see, and it's really interesting too, like seeing international films and seeing like sort of a window into the world of like what it's like to be like a 16-year-old Korean boy.
Yeah, totally.
Like not just like happen to film it in Korea, but like he's actually living that experience. It's really cool to like see into somebody else's world, you know? Yeah.
And you're absolutely right that is something that's so prevalent in independent film, because you're getting films from all over the world. It's a different lens. It's a true different lens. Whereas Hollywood it's still a studio lens. It's still under the umbrella of their brand.
We must make money. We must make money more than anything else. Yeah. And it's like, well, it's kind of wonderful to say, well, how about we just tell a story?
Yes.
How about we don't need to make millions and millions and millions of dollars, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice, like the gatekeepers kind of fall to the wayside, and we get to hear like many different people's stories, you know?
Yeah. And then it gets to be, like I remember when in Stuck, I'd gone out to meet with, not to meet, to an event where a lot of acquaintances that I had were at. And one of them was like, I watched Stuck last night. And like, she had like such a poker face. I didn't know what to expect. So I was like,
God, I hate that.
oh, and I'm like, what did you think? And then she's just like, I loved it, and jumped in because there was a part of, and she mentioned that she related to something that like, one of the characters very specifically, it was like such a small little, it was my character's, she like was lying about, she was still taking birth control because she secretly didn't want to get pregnant because she still wanted to like have a hot body when they got married, right? And like that's something that like I wrote but never really like, it seemed like that character. I never imagined it was necessarily something that, but this really spoke to this person. And like, and that really struck me in that moment where I was like, you never know like what somebody's gonna, identify with and what's going to reach somebody else. And like, I think like that's really the special thing about like making art and film in general is that it's going to reach somebody,
Yeah. That's so nice.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I wanted to ask you as well then, do you like, what is, when you, how many features do you generally have in your festival each year?
It really all depends. Like, I was telling our intern yesterday, he's reading our screenplays through the first round. And I was looking at other festivals and contests and things, and they always have like a round number, 40 or 30 or whatever. And I said, no, we take the very best. So if it's 23 screenplays, if it's 14, it's whatever.
Sure.
If you want, it's whatever the number is. So we're sort of like that too with feature films. It really depends on what we get. It depends on the year. And then we also obviously, or maybe not obviously, we love variety. So like you had a fantastic comedy. We go into colleges and universities and everyone wants to know, how do you get in? And I'm like, just write a comedy, because no, it's so rare. Like it's so rare because it's so hard. And we just try to, find a variety.
That's so interesting. Like, I'm just even that fact, like, because to me, it's like, I only think of writing comedies, but I guess like I could imagine as like an independent filmmaker, you want your first, or even just like a piece that you put that much energy behind, like you sort of want to establish, your voice or like a specific style. And it's right that people don't, I think comedy leans and depends so much on the actors in addition to,
that's tough too.
Yeah.
How did you go about casting? Did you know ahead of time, like, because you had such fantastic actors too, like that had to be, I wasn't sure like who you knew or like...
Yeah, well, so it was kind of a mix, like, we had tapped Jillian Armenante to direct. And so she, my writing partner and I wrote and we're producing, and Jillian wanted to produce as well. So the three of us produced, and Jillian knew Joel McHale. So she, for like 30 years. Yeah. So she was like, do you want to come play with us for a day? And he's like, totally. Yeah. And that's how you, but, and like, once we had him, it was very easy then to reach out. Like I made direct offers for other actors to their agents and that kind of thing. And it was very much like Stuck with Joel McHale, you know what I mean? And then, and that was all it took, like, honestly,
great.
And then the rest of the agents were like, great, a comedy with Joel,
It's like, I can sell it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so you were saying, and I didn't mean to cut you off about the comedy thing, but so people were saying, how do you get in? And you're like, just write a comedy. So,
but it's gotta be funny. That's the other hard part. Because everyone's like, it's all who you know. And I'm like, but then they also have to like you. So it's like,
yeah, exactly. So, but then like beyond that, like, do you find that it, like, does it get really hard each, like how many do you ultimately, that was the initial question and I guess I stepped on it. How many features are generally in the festival each year?
I would say between like 8 and 12.
Okay. which really is like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Very small portion.
such a small portion. Yeah. I mean,
Well,
that
it's
must
also
be so
like
hard.
it takes so much time. You know what I mean? There's so many different reasons. Like we get a lot fewer feature submissions. They're much harder to make. They're much harder to hold someone's attention.
Sure.
They're much harder to make a quality feature. It's, well, you know, I mean, so much more time, money, energy, resources, all of that. And then it's also the time it takes from the festival. So we have to pay. So every minute in that theater costs us a lot of money. So it's like, if something's going to take like $2,000 worth of our $2,000 worth of time, it's got to be really
to sell
good.
tickets. Yeah. It's got to, there has to be an interest from people to buy tickets. Yeah.
Right.
And with shorts, it's like, you know, you pack 5 to, you know, 8 shorts into a screening, and it's like every single filmmaker and their mom is, totally makes total sense.
So, you know, if we have like the avant-garde German film that brings no one, it doesn't matter because 10 minutes, you know.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that's such great info, like intel, because like you would, for like listeners, because you would, I mean, it makes logistic sense, like where it's like, duh, it seems like a duh, but it's also like, you know,
no one admits it.
Yeah,
I'm trouble for my honesty all the time. Like, it's, you know, it's, to be fair, like that's like our own personal thing. It's also probably a Los Angeles thing. I've noticed, like, I'm on a film festival organizer group on Facebook of like 3,000 film festival organizers, and LA is a very different beast. And I would imagine New York City, I would imagine like Los Angeles and New York are their own, it's almost like a different planet.
Sure.
Than running like a film festival in, you know, Green Haven, Vermont.
Right.
Everyone, you know, it's a town of 50,000 people, and what's
desperate for an event, just desperate to
yeah, exactly. Whereas LA, I think there's like I mean, who knows now, but like a red carpet event, I think there's like 3 or 4 every single week. So I mean, there's hundreds of just film festivals. So it's and also I think LA, this I noticed different between, because I lived in New York City for a while. People in LA are sick of, I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but it's hard to get people to come out sometimes because they're sick of driving. So
yeah, true.
So I think like definitely with LA, but then the positive thing about LA, as opposed to being in like Green Haven, Vermont, is that you've got access to stars. It's a fantastic networking event where you can actually meet, you know, you can, like, we had Martin Sheen show up and pay for his own popcorn. Cool. Like you can have like, yeah, and he was wonderful, and it was a total surprise. So that's what's so exciting. We have so many like stars just show up because they happen to be best friends with somebody, you know. So I mean, that's the kind of cool thing about LA film festivals, is like you can meet like Martin Sheen for $15 and you know, meet managers, meet agents, and network. Whereas I think in small towns, film festivals are more just about like getting locals out and getting people.
Yeah, just being like, look at your film screening on the big screen, you know, and like that's sort of the excitement factor. Whereas here, like,
and probably in small towns, they might wine and dine you better. They know they have to. They'll fly you out, or you know, they'll create more incentives. But we're fortunate that it's like, you know, LA has got 10 million people, so
yeah. And the beautiful thing is that it seems that, you know, because I do feel like, you know, casting directors, managers, like those people, like they consider going to film festival like part of work, you know, like they're going to work and they're going to see like what people are doing and what people are making. Indie distributors are going to look for, you know, content. And so the stakes are a bit higher in LA and New York, you know, like, because there are the chance that somebody that could really do something for your career could see your work, you know?
Yeah.
So that makes it exciting too. And so let me ask you this, because this is, you know, a podcast for female filmmakers. Do you like, is the disparity like blatantly obvious to you when you're doing the selection process? Do you find that there's less submissions by female filmmakers, or do you feel like it's pretty even? How does that look?
I would say it's definitely better at this level than say at the studio level. It's a good question. I mean, honestly, like we don't because I noticed this with a lot of film festivals, like they have a commitment where they'll say, 50% of our submissions are going to be like not white men or something like that. And to me, I was like, I don't know. To me, it's like, as a woman, I wouldn't want that, because
Sure.
I would feel like, no. Like, I want to know that I don't want special consideration, first of all. And second of all, like, I don't want to go to a movie and then people are seeing these fantastic films by men and these films by women because they got, and then they think women can't make films.
For sure.
So we've not really like done hardcore stats, though now I'm going to. But I would say it's probably about 2/3 men, 1/3 women.
Yeah.
Which is a lot more than, and maybe Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman and everything shook all that up. But I would say it's definitely better than on the studio level. And there's some really fantastic films. Like we never feel a need to say, oh, we have to have a block for women
only. Sure.
or any marginalized group, because there's always fantastic films by women, about women.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I hope to see more of it. And it's so funny because for the first couple of years, we would have like these panels about like women in film, and everyone would just talk about it, but no one could ever figure out what it would, because some people are saying, well, women have to have kids, so that takes them out, because they've done studies that women and men are up to here until they're like 27, 28. And then women have kids and then they're out of the game for 20 years. And people would just think about different, it was kind of interesting talking about different reasons and why and wherefores and all that. But at the end of the day, no one could figure it out. So
yeah, that's interesting. I do think there may be, I'm sure that attributes a little bit. And then also perhaps, because there really isn't as clear cut, of a career path, because unfortunately women, we are all competing against each other, in like a weird sense. Cause I root for every woman to succeed, but then it's also that thing of like, when like, I feel like men have a particular, sense of moving about in the world and their professions, where, when they see a kid that reminds them of themselves, they're like, come on kid, and they can like help them out, and sometimes women don't quite have that luxury yet of being able to tap someone and immediately take them under their wing and, usher them in. So I feel like, I feel like it's starting to happen more and more, because like some of the female power players are very much like, we need more of this and we need more of this, but it's, we're at the beginning of that, of being able to usher in, other filmmakers that are women. But yeah, that it is so interesting. I do wonder if it's discouragement or babies or, who the hell knows?
Or is it just like, it's interesting to me because some people call it entitlement and some people call it cojones,
Sure.
I've noticed that too, just with like event planning, going into a hotel and saying, here's what I want an event and I want it for free. It's the white men who will be like, I'm going to make that happen for you, because it's like and it's again, is it my anecdotal personal experience or is it just general? But they're more fearless. They're just like, okay, great, we'll do it. And so I feel like when you have a fearlessness, you have to be empowered. So is that something that comes from within, or is it something that comes from society? But that's kind of interesting because I've seen it play out not just in film, but just in the business world in general. I've seen it with our film festival. And again, it's like, I'm more shy, and my husband, the creative director, is very outgoing, more extrovert. But I own the festival. It's like my festival. But a lot of times I know it's a generational thing too. Men over like 50, 55 will just go to Marco. Automatically just go to Marco.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
And he's saying, no, it's actually her festival. I remember our first year, somebody's like, you've been such a great volunteer. And I was like, this is my festival. But again, it's like, I don't fault people, because I'm also like, especially during the festival, it's so stressful and overwhelming. Like I want to kind of hide because you're trying to take care of emails and people, and there's so much going on. and Marco's much more, so it's one of those things you're like, is it because, and we'll never know, but
I think generationally that is a good distinction that I personally could see being very true, you know, because there is, when I'm approached by men of that generation, I'm talked to in a way that's, you know, like when I bartended in Pasadena, for instance, a lot of my clientele was men in that age group, and it very much was very mansplaining, or very, you know, very like, so what are you interested in? And then like sizing me up, being like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, just the immediate inclination is that the immediate assessment is that you're not where they are. Do you know what I mean? Sort of
help you out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there's also the age thing, because I could see being like, if I go talk to somebody who's in college, I'm probably like that too. Like I'm gonna be like, let me tell you how the world is, kid. So, but then it's like, but I think there's also a gender thing there too. So it's kind of interesting.
And like, because where society was when they were coming, you know, when they were really coming up into the world, like, so, you know, so no, in the sense of like, no shade, like things were different. I get it. You literally didn't have an experience where women were vying for your jobs. You come from a world where women were secretaries until they had babies, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's so wild when I read stats, like women couldn't have bank accounts or credit cards. And I was just like, you literally had to get married. Like you had to, or I don't know, I guess it was tough.
Yeah. I mean, and even before that, where it was like, well, women need to be like cattle. Like we auction them off, like really to the best bidder. I mean, it's just business, you know, business decision.
Crazy.
But yeah, so that's very interesting, because first of all, your festival, I mentioned that we went to one with Hollywood in the title. And
not Holly Shorts. I don't want to
get Holly Shorts.
Yeah, any festival in trouble that's like called Holly something.
Yeah, no. Well, it has Hollywood in the title, and it's not. Yeah, and it's and to each their own. Like I was very happy to have my film screening there, regardless. But the difference in care that was taken, I really appreciated. You know, you have this theme, this speakeasy theme, and like, you know, the dress is encouraged, which is fun. You know, like. The bar.
It's a very female thing, right?
Yeah, it totally is.
I'm not a filmmaker, so I don't know what you guys experience on your end, but I thought that. I wondered that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it
like that.
Yeah, it feels, you know, there's like a theme, you're going out for the night, and like, and you're all part of it. And it's sort of this unifying factor to everyone who's a guest, you know, or everyone who's attending, everyone who's in attendance, versus, you know, just showing up and being, you know, I don't know. It's really fun, and such great care is taken in sort of establishing, you know, a vibe that makes it unlike another evening. So hats off to you on that.
Yes, it gives a sense of specialness. Thank you. Because we started this during the Great Recession. So I wanted to have that, like that 1920s feel, because I was trying to think of a time where things were like wild and crazy and fun, but still like classy at the same time. And it was a prosperous time. And then it was Great Gatsby came out, Leonardo DiCaprio, and the Downton Abbey was a hit. And so I noticed like there was 1920s dresses and sort of things, and like Macy's and different, so people could actually, they didn't have to go to a costume shop, you know, they could actually get dresses. And so I was like, okay, this is, because I thought of maybe changing it, but I was like, it's a fun time.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
We just got lucky with the speakeasy.
I know, right?
It was sort of like kismet or serendipity or something. So I was like, oh wow, this works out perfectly. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
It is funny when you think of, and also what I've noticed too is a lot of people think of film festivals as like a side hustle. Like I work my 9 to 5, but in my off time, I'm going to run a film festival. It's like, oh man, it's a lot more work and a lot more time consuming than people think. The only thing I think of doing that is maybe you're a teacher and like have a film festival in the summer or something like that.
Sure.
But just from the ones I've gone to, it's like unless it's like you're doing a niche and it's like you're passionate about like, vampire cinema, or, I don't know, Brazilian cinema or something like that, and you have something sort of small, but we wanted to just, do something big, and the festival itself is so much. I thought it would be a nightmare, but it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to meet people, because it's a really wonderful energy, right? Because it's sort of like a wedding energy or graduation energy where everyone's really excited and happy.
Yeah.
That's my pitch to venues, because they get really nervous.
Right.
Because people are like mean to them. I don't know, but I'm like, it's going to be a young group of people. They're very nice. They're not gonna destroy you on Yelp, I promise.
Yeah, and they're gonna come, like, they're very aware that, like, these are their industry peers. So they're gonna, show up realizing that it's a fun time, but also there's that boundary of like, shit's not gonna hit the fan and they're not gonna go wild or get too drunk because,
right.
They want to be received well professionally.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think people get they've learned to love our group, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, no, that's so rad. So now last year, was it all virtual?
No, the pandemic happened right in the middle.
Oh,
it was
my God.
crazy. So yeah, we got a lot of hate mail. I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. But we started, it was in March, and we went a few days, and then I think Gavin Newsom shut everything down. So we shut everything down, and we just we're like, sorry guys, we're just gonna play things by ear and see how the year unfolds, because I think Greg Lemley everyone was sort of hoping the summer, because I think everyone was just thinking it was like the Spanish flu and it would go away. And I was like, it's not the flu. And then, so it didn't. And so we just finished up virtually at the end of the year. We had our award ceremony at the end of the year. And so this year we're having it in 7 weeks, which I can't even believe it. So fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Because just go back, because I'm like, we can't hunker down forever. This is
my heart can't take another lockdown.
I know.
It just can't.
It can't. And it's like, can the world? I mean, they can keep printing money, but eventually that's not going to sustain things. I mean, eventually I don't know if maybe we need hazmat suits. I don't know, but we've got to get back to interacting with society and figure things out. So
that's so interesting. I feel like you just solved the pandemic. What if everyone had to wear a hazmat suit everywhere?
There we go.
No skin on skin contact, no breathing the same air, just for 3 months and let it die.
No more lockdown.
Yeah, no more lockdowns.
Just, have a little space where you can eat and drink.
Yeah.
And there we go. Because it's I mean, I guess it would be expensive, but less expensive than
dragging this on for an indefinite amount of time.
I mean, it's been 17 months. I don't know. It's crazy, but it's
yeah, I hope we don't go into another lockdown. I hope you get to have the festival without any. Yeah, of course. I was actually looking, I almost hit you up to volunteer this year, but then some stuff, I got too busy. Yeah, it's true. I do want to volunteer at a festival, and I almost reached out to yours because I thought it was just so well run being on the filmmaker side. Yeah. And so, and then my fall, some stuff changed, and I think I'm hopefully doing a feature, fingers crossed. So yeah. So, things got too busy, but that's right. I did see that it was upcoming in the fall. And that's changed from spring. So are you just adjusting to the course of we finished last year with the awards, so now we'll just sort of flip it and make it a fall event? Or do you foresee?
No, that's what's so hard. I think we're just, because I just talked to a reporter the other day, and he's like, well, you're not going to have one in March again, are you? And I was like, we were hoping to, but yeah, it sounds kind of crazy. We just chose March primarily because of the heat. We just wanted, we're trying to find that perfect time where the rain ends before the heat begins. Because, there's always a power outage. There's always those it can be triple digits, June through October. And there's always those power outages. So that's what we were kind of avoiding. But I'm thinking maybe we'll do June, September, and then do June. It's just so tough to say, because this is such an unknown. Nobody really knows what's going on.
I know.
But it's I don't even know if people are making movies. I'm just fingers crossed that they're still getting together. And
yeah, I'm trying. I was so desperate to create during the pandemic. A friend of mine, a friend of mine and myself, like literally no equipment, nothing, just me and a black magic, went over to her house after we were both quarantined for like 2 weeks. And I just shot, we shot a 1-person short with her, and it was so much fun. But like, that's the thing. It's just like, I assume a lot of people were feeling that desire to create. So I'm sure movies are still happening. I think
I hope
that's,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's in our DNA. Like I was reading, before television was invented, every house had a piano.
Oh, wow.
Because that's what people used to do in the evening. And before like music was electronic, it was, everyone bought sheet music and had a piano. And so that everyone just sort of, that was their thing. And so I think like inherently like creating is in our DNA, and it's so healthy. It's so much more healthier than consuming.
Yes, because we need to, I mean, it's getting it out, transmuting every emotion we have into something that's more useful. So, yeah.
Keep me posted because we love your stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely will. And with that, because I desperately do want the listeners to get some beads of insight in terms of what to expect. Do you have any like cool success stories for like that of from your festival, where like somebody who won an award like went on to get something amazing, or like?
Yeah, well, what we love is we have one of our jurors runs the American Pavilion at Cannes.
Oh, cool.
So not every single year, but most, I would say 80% of the time, she takes one of our films to Cannes. So that's really cool. And I was amazed when we first started. Our second year, one of our films was in the top 10 to get an Oscar nomination.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Bis gleich. It was, I think it was the last film that was submitted, and it was really wonderful, and they were very excited. So, you're up at like 5:30 in the morning, like, did they get it? So every year, I mean, we had one year, this year we had 1, 2, 3, All Eyes on Me. It was about school shootings, and it was a short that was so well done, and they sold it to HBO.
Oh, wow.
So every year, yeah, we have some great success stories, and I'm hoping every year, like, we meet more and more and more people who can further filmmakers' careers, because I mean, that's at the bare minimum, we want to give people a great screening and a fabulous time, but at the next level, we want to make sure that people are like, we always try to have distributors on our jury, and then we want people to get a good deal. Like, I noticed everything goes to Amazon, and I just can't imagine Bezos is that generous. So.
Yeah, no, I hear it's and it's gotten even worse. Apparently, it's gotten to like, it used to be a lot more generous, and now it's gone down to like 12 cents per like watched minute or something. So like, somebody's going to watch the whole movie, and it's not even, you know what I mean? Like 60 or I guess 120. So yeah, I mean, it's like $2, you know what I mean? Per every eye they can watch it. It's just, yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. So we're trying to like, I think a lot of people are trying to do this too, but create more opportunities for filmmakers. For example, we want to do for screenwriters, have a reading. And this year too, which we've started, is every accepted film gets a certificate. Because I was trying to think what people, and again, I'm thinking kind of like, it's kind of interesting. I'm thinking like, what would women want? I'm thinking like little lotions. And then I was like, no, they think like career-wise, I think what people would want more than anything is like some sort of acknowledgement of their accomplishments and their achievements.
Absolutely.
Like, so now everybody gets a certificate. So we try to really give the filmmakers what they want, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, they're our bread and butter, and it is such a tough industry to break into. But what's really cool is like, things do happen. Things happen, because I went through a cynical phase where I'm like, oh, it's all a lie, and then you're like, no, but wait, like, like, I remember watching Heather Matarazzo and like the Princess Diaries and stuff, and now here she is at my festival.
Totally.
So it's like,
and you get to have a hand in helping, like, literally, because you started something. A filmmaker gets to go to Cannes their film gets to go to Cannes every year. Like, somebody's short film ended up on HBO. Like, that's so fucking rad, And that's all because you decided to start a festival. So, But like you said, like keeping the filmmakers happy is of course great. I noticed you guys are one of the top 100 festivals on Film Freeway, which is awesome. Yeah.
And we don't pay anyone to review us.
That's
or ask
great.
them.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to do it, because like sometimes I feel like people do, I know sometimes I feel a little, like I feel a little put out sometimes when people are like, would you give us a review? Would you give us a nice review?
But they do that. I was just joking, but people really do that.
Oh, yeah, wow. No, yeah, all the time. Like, I feel like people are like, give us a nice review. And it's like, I know for me, when I've been compelled to review something, it's because I've had a beautiful experience where I'm like, I genuinely want to share about this. I'm not somebody, all my experience in the service industry for all those years has made me never want to go on to tarnish something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I read Yelp sometimes and I'm like, have you all never had a job? Like, seriously? Like, you cut people a little slack here. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting. So people actually ask you to review. No, like all of our testimonials. I think Film Freeway sends something out to remind people to review. I think that happens. But no, because it's not going to be like, say you want like a recommendation on LinkedIn or something like that. Like, it's never going to be that spectacular if you have to fish for it. So that's really interesting. So I mean, we got lucky, and I think I was amazed that there just aren't that many great Los Angeles film festivals, but it might be because everything's so expensive here. Like, land is so expensive here.
Sure.
That might be why things happen in the desert.
Also, like, for sure. I think that I'm sure that's part of it. And then the other part of it is, and I don't want to, I mean, because I have no idea. I can only speculate, but what I would speculate is that I think a lot of people get into it for the wrong reasons. They get into it as like an ulterior motive, like, oh, I'm going
to make some extra cash.
Yeah, extra cash, or I'm going to start this festival and then I'll become a hotshot and everybody will want to watch my movie or whatever, and desiring to create community is one thing, but desiring, I get the sense that some stuff that's particularly half-assed in regard to the festival space is generally because somebody was trying to get something else out of it, not trying to give. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And I get that because it's such a tough business, but I mean, from what I've seen and just from meeting, like, I mean, when you meet people at different levels, and you see it even in the people who come to your festival, it's the people who were extras in the film, not to diss on extras. I've been an extra, but like they will want the free pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like the Martin Sheens will be, and I've really noticed that it's generosity of spirit is very integral to success. I mean, that's what I've seen. And it's also just a great way to live life. Like, every time we've given, it always comes back.
100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, if you do things with the right reason, for the right reasons, like, and I've heard that people like George Clooney say that and Tyler Perry say that, and just makes sense.
Yeah.
And there are festivals who do that. They have this energy of like, I'm doing this to like meet the right people or whatever, which I'm sure, that's a fun perk. But
yeah, definitely a fun perk. I mean, a fun perk of doing this podcast for me is like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get to talk, I get to like have amazing conversations with like really inspiring women who are making feature films that, are making waves in this industry that's so hard to make waves in, So I definitely get something out of it. But personally, it was like, I wanted to do it because I was starved, because I was listening to a couple pretty hot podcasts, and I still like them. I still love them. Indie Film Hustle, Just Shoot It. But they're male hosts, and a majority of the filmmakers on there were men. There is like a woman every, 15 episodes, every 20 episodes. Right. But, I just felt like I'm like, I make stuff. I know there's other women making stuff. And I think, that there should be more of a community, and there should be more resources out there to know that there's other women doing it. So
smart.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much. I feel like we can start winding down here. I would love, let people know. I'd love for people to know exactly when the festival is this year, where they can get passes, and also like when you generally start the submission process. And
Sure.
yeah, go through some of that. Would be great.
So the festival this year is September 9th through the 16th. And submissions close August 13th, and that's for films and screenplays. And we're at the Lumley Playhouse 7 this year as well. And at the Speakeasy, we're excited to have those venues back. And Lid and Mo Photography Studio for our pass holders lounge. And our website, pasadenafilmfestival.org. You can find out all you can see videos and images and get all of your info there. And we're on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And I think that's it.
Yeah, and to the listeners, if you have a comedy, fucking send it Jessica's way, because it sounds like there's not enough.
Yeah, it's not enough. And stuff for kids is a good one too. It's hard to find.
That's a good one to know, like family stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah.
We try to have like something like a family-friendly block every year, and it's harder because it has to be G-rated. It also has to keep kids' interest, which is not easy.
That is not easy. And I would imagine that so much indie film is a lot of times darker themes, like racier themes. Like, what you just said makes so much sense. Family films, for sure. So, well, beautiful. Thank you so much for.
Thank you, Heather.